neurons connecting the cells. Okay. So the other thing on the vision is that was really fascinating, I thought, was newborn infants. They did some scientific tests on newborn infants. These aren't quite as empirical. They're not quite as like, this is the way it is with scientific cells, you know. But it's also, I think, very convincing evidence, where they took newborn infants and they had them in a cradle. And what they did was they put, on one side, they put a revolving mobile, you know, mobile, with a little image on it, and it's revolving. On the other side of the infant, they put a face, a human face, a picture of a human face, a woman's face. 100% of the cases, guess what? The newborn infants that were female, the little girls, they all looked to the side of the face. 100% of the guys, the babies, the newborn infants that were men, looked to the other side. They would look to the spinning mobile. So I think that's really solid. I mean, like I say, it's not as empirical as the rods and cones, but I mean, it gives you some insight into the differences between men and women, and color and texture on the women's side, and speed direction on the men's side. And you see this in writing, you know, especially in little kids. We'll start with drawing pictures, right? I mean, you look at a little boy drawing pictures, and they draw a picture of what? Rocket ship, like movement. They draw a picture of an explosion, right? I mean, and what colors do they use? Black and purple, they don't care. You know, like, oh, that's a nice picture, Billy, what are you doing? Oh, this is a rocket ship exploding, look at the debris flying, I mean, the chunks of rocks. You know, I was like, oh. And then the teachers, here's the teachers, right? Like, oh, good job, Billy. Let's try and have a little more color and detail, you know, right? It looks better on paper. And then the women, it's the opposite. It's like, oh, nice picture, Susie. Yeah, this is my family, and this is all the colors, and all the detail, and look at all the people, you know. Now, no wonder you don't have a lot of artistic guys, you know, like, they get squashed in school because, you know, I mean, because of the way they're designed. And how do you basically combat that? I teach CCD classes, so I've seen this. I mean, I've got these little boys. I teach second grade, the reconciliation class, and I teach fifth and ninth grade. But the second graders, the guys are really rambunctious. You know, they like to move around, they like to do something, they like to draw pictures of explosions and movement. How do you do that in CCD? How do you, you know, channel that? It's tricky, but yeah. And the same thing with their essays and things like this. You know, when they write up an essay, the boys actually will, and even the men at the University of Virginia, even the men, they did a study on the use as their impact words. They use verbs and adverbs as their impact words. Women generally use nouns as their impact words. So even you can see that at our age, it carries through. So I think maybe, you know, you ask a boy to write in more detail, right? Like, we're drawing a picture, write in more detail. No, right? But you can say, you know, like, draw a little more action. Yeah, I'll draw some more action. You know, I mean, it's the way we're wired. So that's something to keep in mind throughout this. And again, all of this, I mean, this is, I think this is good, you know, evidence that basically backs this kind of, you know, thought process up. Like, what does it mean to be wild at heart? What does it mean, you know, for men to desire a battle to fight, an adventure to live, a beauty to rescue? This helps us to understand that at a deeper level, how we're made, how physiologically, chemically, how we are, you know. Now, I'm going to move to stress. So we went through hearing, we went through vision. I wanted to talk about how men and women respond to stress differently. This is also fascinating. Now, you've heard of fight or flight, everybody? Fight or flight? Yeah, it's 50 years old. It's old research, 60, 70-year-old research. What these scientists did And guess what they did when they did the research on the fight or flight response? Basically, just to give you a little bit of a review, basically, if you chase an animal or something, it's either going to turn around and fight, or it's going to fly, right? A fight or flight response. And it's a mechanism inside where your adrenaline goes up, your heart rate goes up, your digestive system shuts down. You don't want to be digesting food when I'm chasing you around with a baseball bat. So that's the fight or flight. Now, when they did the research, it was only males. They only tested the males. Why did they do that? Because basically, they didn't want well, they had trouble with the females, honestly. They had trouble because the hormonal swings, And so they strictly stuck to the males in this research. And this is really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. Now they've done new research on this. They basically went back and said, we got to look at it. What's the response in women? Guess what the response is? It's hide and camouflage. It's not fight or flight. Unless you extremely stress out a woman, they won't go into the same fight or flight pattern, where you rise, where your adrenaline rises, your heart rate, your blood flow increases, all this. And in the men, there's two different nervous systems. There's the parasympathetic, and there's the sympathetic. You've probably heard of them. I'll give you a little bit of a background on them. The sympathetic, when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, that's the one that your heart rate is increasing, your blood pressure increases, all of these things. It's basically the fight or flight that we've known up till now. And your visual acuity increases also. So your ability to take things in, your peripheral vision increases, all these things. That's the sympathetic nervous system. Now, interestingly, you guys would really think this is interesting, I think. It's accommodated, the sympathetic nervous system is accommodated by cooler temperatures and by movement. You want to move around, right? I mean, your heart's pumping, you want to get out, you want to move around. Your blood pressure's up, you've got blood flowing, you don't want to just be sitting there, So, in cooler temperatures, right? Your muscles are more active, they're ready to go. It's ideal, optimal at a cooler temperature with your sympathetic nervous system.